Overcooked first hit the Switch in 2017, having released about a year before that elsewhere. Its frantic co-op play was met with positive reviews, and the sequel also made its way to the Switch a year later in 2018. This all-you-can-eat edition bundles both games along with all of the DLC ever released for both games in one package. Is it worth another bite, or is that just asking for a bad case of heartburn? I'm Glen Bolger, thank you to Team 17 for the review code, and now let's find out. Overcooked tells a tale of you being sent back in time, learning to become master chefs in order to defeat an ancient evil, whereas the sequel sees your culinary services called upon once again after a reading from the Necronomicon sees the rising of the unbred. The stories are just a means to get you into various zany kitchens via the campaign mode, but to be fair, the writing is good and it's full of witty moments. In terms of the gameplay then, for anyone that's not played the games before, they both have a similar premise, and that is to attempt to complete as many food orders as possible in the time limit given for each stage. You have two chefs at your disposal, single player has you controlling both characters, switching between them when needed, or multiplayer has each person controlling a character each. Each successful order earns you money, and the stage will have a set amount you must earn in order to pass it, thus earning you 1 star. But there will also be 2 further amounts to aim for, meaning that a stage can earn you up to 3 stars in total. Stars are important as they are how you are able to open up new areas of the map and partake in later levels. It's obviously not as easy as all that though, and the nature of the gameplay is what makes the series so engaging. New meals, each with their own ingredients to familiarise yourself with, are introduced at regular intervals, and for every order that comes in, you must prepare the ingredients at the appropriate station, before putting them all together on a plate and serving them up. But the levels are never designed in such a way that makes this straightforward. Early on it may be a case of just getting the lettuce to the chopping board or ensuring the steak doesn't burn, but as you progress the stages become much more outlandish, and will see you needing to use conveyor belts, deal with moving stages, using warps to get from one side to another, being separated from each other by some sort of set piece, or dealing with environmental hazards such as slippery ice or fire. The second game also introduced some stages where the theme would change midway through. An early example has a hot air balloon ride that, after a storm, crashes into a sushi bar. When you throw in the speed at which new orders are given to you, and the relatively short amount of time you have to complete them, and you have the recipe for absolute chaos that the series is affectionately known for. Getting orders in on time earns you a higher tip, and missing an order will see an amount of money deducted from your total. Now, while as a single player experience both games are chaotic fun, add a second player in and absolute pandemonium ensues. The amount of money you must earn for each star is increased, so you really do need to run like a well-oiled machine. Deciding who will chop, who will cook, who washes up, where to stand once the levels start becoming bigger, and trying not to constantly get in each other's way, has a very unique ability to evoke feelings of joy, tension, anger, frustration, and elation towards your co-op partner. I've played many hours of both games with my wife, and there are very few co-op experiences that match it for us. Communication is absolutely the key to success, and failure to converse will result in many failed attempts, but getting it right, discussing a strategy and executing it to perfection feels incredibly satisfying. As well as the campaign mode, there is an arcade mode which allows you to pick specific levels, plus there is a versus mode for up to 4 players. Control wise, you move your character with the left stick, pressing A to pick up items, and X to carry out an action on said item such as chopping or mixing. B allows you to perform a dash move, and the L button is used during single player to switch between your two characters. Overcooked 2 introduced a throw move, and when playing the second game this is activated by pressing X. When it first released, Overcooked 1 did suffer from some input lag, although it was subsequently fixed via a patch, and this version is also absolutely fine in that regard, as you would expect. Whilst the controls are responsive, there are occasions where you will find your character facing the wrong workstation to the one you wanted, thus needing some readjustment which costs you valuable seconds. I think perhaps the turning circle of the character could do with a little refinement, and it is a shame that this has never been rectified over the various games and updates, but it is a minor issue at most and won't cause too many problems. New for this all-you-can-eat edition is the inclusion of online play for the first Overcooked game. Overcooked 2 has always had online, but this has also been integrated into that first game for this particular release. Crossplay is included, but even with this I did find it difficult to find a match. In fact, I either searched unsuccessfully or I had one instance of finding a match but the player dropped out as soon as we started. Hopefully this isn't the norm and it was just my bad luck. Speaking of features for this all-you-can-eat edition, as well as the two main games, it also includes all DLC released for them. This equates to 13 new level packs, each with their own theme, and this adds a good few hours extra to the package. I had never played any of this before despite finishing the two base games, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that whilst it is more of the same, there were also a few new ideas such as having to chop up firewood before cooking the food in the camping pack, that sort of thing. Then there is the assist mode, which increases the amount of time you get, lengthens how long each order is valid for, etc, and basically makes the game more accessible. My thoughts on this sort of thing is as long as it is an extra and doesn't affect the core gameplay, which is how it is dealt with here, then it's always nice to see. Finally, the tip multiplier system introduced in the second game, which sees you earn extra money for not missing an order, has been integrated into the first game too, and due to this the target scores for each level have been upped from the original, potentially putting a new spin on a game that some people have played before. Gameplay is great fun in single player but enters a whole new stratosphere in multiplayer, and when playing it this way it scores 18 out of 20. Controls work well enough and you can play with just a single Joy-Con too, which supports the whole co-op appeal of the title, and they score 15 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, things are just as colourful and crazy as they always were, but on top of this, the first game has also been remodelled to use the Overcooked 2 engine. This means it now looks a little more crisp, plus timer bars and icons have been cleaned up and some extra little details such as garnish on bowls of soup have been added. The most noticeable change though is that the camera has also been adjusted to provide a better view of the action, as was the case in the sequel, and this is definitely a welcome change. You wouldn't necessarily notice it without comparing old and new versions, but once you spot it, it's a definite improvement. There is a dyslexia friendly font, and you can also increase the size of the text should you need to. The host of characters you can choose from is vast and varied, and whilst I believe you unlocked them in previous versions, they are all available here from the start. Performance wise, things run smoothly for the vast majority of the time. I had a couple of incidents of dropped frames, but I mean a couple that lasted a split second in all the hours that I played. Loading times however were a little longer than I would have liked. The music does a great job of complementing the wacky visuals, but also ramping up the tension as the timer begins to tick down. There are a host of tracks to go with the number of different settings that you will pass through, and all of them are very enjoyable to listen to. Visuals definitely look more polished, and it's nice to see the first game receive the quality of life features that the second game had, and they score 16 out of 20. Audio does a very good job of complementing the mood of the game and also scores 16 out of 20. Overcooked All You Can Eat costs £29.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. For this price, as already stated, you are getting the two main Overcooked games plus all of the DLC that has been released, as well as the inclusion of online play for the first game and that new assist mode. The game's main stories will probably take around 6 to 8 hours to complete each, although if you want to get max stars on each level, you are looking closer to about 15 hours per game. And then of course you have all of the DLC to work through too. The first game alone is £18 on the eShop and the sequel is £20, and that's without any of that DLC, so this is hands down the cheapest way to grab all things Overcooked in one convenient bundle. If you already own one of the games, or if you feel you just need one of them and that would be enough for you, then this is where the value will need to be scrutinised by you as an individual, but it's hard to argue against this package being a very good deal. There is also a physical version available, which I've seen advertised at about £28, so that's another option, but value scores 18 out of 20. To conclude, Overcooked was such a breath of fresh air when I first played it. Finding a game to play in co-op with my wife that she genuinely enjoyed and we were both equally skilled at was very difficult, and this game met that criteria to a T. Whilst this package doesn't change that gameplay much all these years later, it didn't really need to, and compiling everything together into one package with the improvements already mentioned is a great deal for anyone who hasn't yet played this series. You could play for anywhere between 20 and 50 hours depending on how much of a completionist you are. If you have played it all before, or you are only going to play in single player, I'd be inclined to maybe take a couple of points off the final score, but even with this in mind, this still serves up an absolute treat. Overcooked All You Can Eat gets a SwitchUp score of 83%. Thank you everybody for watching, I hope you enjoyed that review. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Is this something that you'd be looking to pick up, or have you had your fill of Overcooked in the past? Please do let us know in the comment section below. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, stay safe of course, and until next time, happy gaming.